The vox picked up a heartbeat beneath the bedrock long after the heart had stopped. I noted the anomaly at 0311 local and locked the channel before command could hear the tremor in my own. This is Sergeant Caldis Ryan of the 43rd Forstroyan Firstborn, deployment code Dagon 30. Hive Dagon is a place of heat and metal, a labyrinth of furnaces and rendering plants, where the dead of a dozen wars are stripped for rations and chem fuel. It should never be called. Yet, as the elevator cage clattered toward the flesh processing levels, our breath smoked like winter on Valhalla. The descent meter read a steady rise in magma flow, but the rails were rimed in ice. The machine spirit of my lasgun hissed against the chill. Private Crowell muttered the catechism of warding through clenched teeth. No one corrected him. The words fell flat, as if the air swallowed every prayer. Our orders were clear. Locate the missing Mechanicus survey team. Confirm reactor stability. Return to surface. 3 teams before us had gone dark. Command believed they were victims of collapsing tunnels or hive-ganger ambush. I had believed it too, until the vox pulsed again, with that impossible heartbeat, slow, deliberate, too deep for any man. The lift ground to a halt. We stepped into a corridor of black steel, slick with frost. Lumens flickered, their glow refracted by crystals that sprouted like fungus from the walls. I tapped the auspex. Ambient temperature, 8 degrees below freezing. Impossible. We were nearly a kilometer above the planet's molten core. Corporal Venn brushed a hand along the wall and jerked back, blood welling from a hairline cut. The steel had bitten him. The wound steamed in the frozen air. I ordered silence and forward formation. Boots rang on the deck. The echoes stretched thin, as though the sound traveled a distance greater than the corridor's length. We passed carcasses, awaiting rendering. Drox, Sampeel. Something unclassified that had once filled a freight container. Their hides should have been stiff with death, yet frost plumes curled from their nostrils, as though they dreamed. Creel swore one of the beasts, shuddered, hide cracking like thin ice. I told him he imagined it, though I had seen the tremor myself. The further we advanced, the more the walls breathed. Condensation pulsed with the rhythm of a vast, unseen lung. Frost crystals formed patterns like high Gothic letters, but when I looked away and back, the shapes had rearranged themselves. I tried to mark them in my log. The slate refused to render the curves, displaying only static sigils. "Sergeant," Venn whispered. His vox bead clicked without command. A sound bled into the channel, a low-frequency thrum that rattled my teeth. It matched the phantom heartbeat exactly. We reached the primary junction and found the Mechanicus door wide. No sign of forced entry. Auspex pinged a heat signature ahead, brief and flickering. I signaled halt and approached, lasgun raised. Then the vox came alive again, not with static, but with a scream. My own scream. It rolled down the corridor, layered and stretched. The unmistakable timbre of my voice caught in endless reverb. My squad froze. The scream tapered to a wet gasp that ended in a single word. Enter. I tasted iron on my tongue. The chamber beyond the door exhaled a gust of air, so cold it burned. Lumens flared and died, leaving only the glow of our gun-mounted lamps. I should have ordered a retreat. Instead, I stepped through, duty before fear. The chamber was circular, walls of black alloy veined with frost that pulsed faintly in time with the distant thrum. In the center, a stairwell spiraled downward, narrow, wet, descending into a darkness that seemed to draw the light itself. You opened this bin? Asked. The question fell dead in the air. I switched to Command Vox. Control. This is Ryan. We have breached primary rendering sector. Found. Static drowned. The words. Behind us. The Mechanicus door screeched shut with the sound of tearing flesh. Locks engaged. One by one. Heavy as tombstones. We were alone with the heartbeat.
I checked the specs again. 4 life signs, my squad. And beneath us, deeper than sensors could chart, a 5th.
The stairs waited, slick with frozen condensation, vanishing into a black that no lumen could touch. The pulse below quickened, almost eager. I tightened the strap of my lasgun and began the descent. Frost cracked beneath our boots as we began the spiral descent. The stairwell walls were slick with a rime that glowed faintly blue, as though light seeped from inside the metal. My breath fogged a lumen beam and hung motionless, suspended mid-air, before breaking apart like shattered glass. Gravity felt uncertain, the pull alternating between a steady drag and a brief stomach-twisting lift, as though the stair itself breathed. Private Crail kept muttering the litany of true sight. Each verse sounded thinner than the last, syllables dropping like teeth. When he reached the final line, the echo that returned was not his own voice, but something slower, deeper. His words reversed and drawn out into a mournful chant. He flinched and gripped the railing, knuckles whitening. None of us corrected him. Correction required certainty, and certainty was gone. After 40 meters, the stairs opened into a corridor wider than any rendering shaft should allow. Our auspex registered a pressure differential, atmosphere too heavy for this depth. Condensation hung in globes that drifted like living eyes. I brushed one with a glove, and it split soundlessly, a droplet of perfectly clear liquid that steamed despite the cold. The metallic tang clung to my tongue even through the respirator. Shapes lined the walls, colossal carcasses suspended from hooks, hides flayed in long curls. They belonged to no catalogued species. Some bore chitinous plates, like deep-sea crustaceans. Others stretched thin and nearly translucent, veins etched across them like star maps. Sergeant's instinct urged me to log every detail, but the data slate refused to store the images. Each capture blurred into static, then blank gray. Corporal Venn pressed a gloved hand to the nearest carcass and jerked back. "It's warm," he hissed. His breath fogged in a sudden burst, though the temperature remained sub-zero. I placed my palm where his had been and felt it, a slow, deliberate expansion beneath the flayed flesh, like the draw of a lung. Lasgrio's vox crackled. "Movement," he whispered. "Sector right." Our beam swept across the corridor, nothing but hanging bodies swaying imperceptibly, their shadows lagging half a heartbeat behind the motion. I ordered weapons ready, safeties off. This sound came again, a faint rasp, the sigh of something vast and patient. My auspex pulsed, a warning. 5 life signs detected. I checked the count twice. There were 4 of us. The 5th signature hovered just beyond our lance, moving when we moved, maintaining distance. I signaled halt and rechecked. The contact mirrored the pause. "Show yourself," I barked. The command bounced back, distorted. My own voice stretched and slowed until it was unrecognizable. No answer. So we advanced every meter, closed, tightened the code around our throats. The frost thickened, forming crystalline ribs that arched overhead, turning the corridor into a frozen cathedral. The ribs vibrated softly, a resonance that settled into our bones. Private Jones' lamp flickered, sputtered out. In the dark we heard the faint scrape of metal on stone behind us. He cursed. Really the lumen. No one stood there. Only our footprints leading back up the stair, and a single new set, deeper, heavier, pointing downward. Then, murmured the Emperor's benediction. Each time he reached the Emperor's name, the sound guttered, replaced by a thin whine like feedback. I felt the hairs rise along my neck.
Ahead, the corridor widened into an antechamber rimmed with old Mechanicus glyphs. They shifted subtly when viewed from the corner of the eye, lines lengthening, angles folding into impossible geometries. I tried to trace one with my Auspex stylus. The glyph bled light and reformed before the stroke completed.
Grail raised his rifle. Sergeant.
It's standing there. I followed his aim. At the far side of the chamber, barely within the outer halo of our lumens, a silhouette waited, humanoid, helmeted. Its posture mirrored mine exactly, legs apart, weapon held at low ready. Identify yourself, I called. The words scraped the air, like rust. The figure did not move. Then, with the smallest tilt of its head, it stepped backward into shadow and was gone. I advanced 3 paces. The Auspex registered it again, still at the edge of range, as though distance itself bent to keep it near and far. Simultaneously, my finger tightened on the trigger. A wet drip touched my cheek. I glanced upward. Frost formed in spirals overhead, each droplet falling in perfect rhythm with the distant pulse. Hold formation, I ordered, though my own voice wavered. The corridor ahead narrowed into a throat of black steel. At its center, a door of bone-white alloy stood slightly ajar, warm mist curling from the gap. The 5th signal pulsed from beyond it, steady and patient. Behind us, the stairwell groaned and sealed with a hiss of pressurized air. Our exit was gone. The Auspex beeped again. 5 signatures, then 6, then 5. Numbers flickered like a heartbeat out of rhythm. We moved toward the door, because movement was the only choice. The mist within smelled of iron and wet stone, and somewhere beneath it all, faint but undeniable, came the echo of my own breathing, out of sync, a half-second ahead of the breath I drew. The bone-white door yielded with a sigh that felt alive, edges moist where metal should have been dry. Warm vapor spilled across our boots, carrying a faint copper sweetness, like blood boiled with incense. We stepped through, and the chamber beyond tightened around us, a tunnel of ribbed steel that curved without end. My Auspex pulsed steady, 5 life signs still, but each ping arrived a fraction before I expected it, as if the machine knew my thoughts ahead of time. The 5th signature moved in lockstep with us. Distance, 5 meters. No matter our pace, it held that gap, a phantom tethered to our breath. Cryo, rear watch, I ordered. My voice cracked. Confirm, visual. He pivoted, lumen sweeping the corridor. Nothing, Sergeant. The beam found only shadow, yet the ping remained. Corporal then cursed softly. It's behind someone. Always behind. We slowed, halted. The Auspex dot stopped too, pulsing with the rhythm of a patient heart. I turned, weapon raised, expecting empty air. Instead, for an instant, I saw it, a guardsman's outline, Laskin at low ready, helmet visor reflecting our own lights. Its posture matched mine perfectly. When I shifted my stance, the figure shifted first, a heartbeat ahead. Jern exhaled sharply. Emperor preserve. The lumen beams flickered. In that blink, the silhouette vanished. Only frost remained. Delicate patterns like high Gothic letters that rearranged themselves when I tried to read them. We pressed on, each footfall muffled, as though the air thickened into wool. Condensation gathered on our armor, beadlets rolling upward against gravity. Crayood's breathing grew fast. Ragged, it's walking with us, he hissed. I can feel it between the blinks. The corridor bent left without warning, geometry folding in a way that hurt the eyes. My internal compass spun uselessly. Overhead, the ribs throbbed with a dim crimson glow, but faded when directly observed. A sound like distant rain reached us, then touched the wall, and withdrew a slick glove. It's bleeding, he said flatly. The liquid clinging to his fingers was dark and warm, smelling of machine oil and salt. Then the auspex chirped. 5 signatures. 4. My gut clenched. I counted my men, all present. Another chirp. 6. Signal corruption, I whispered, though I did not believe it. The phantom appeared again, this time to my left, almost within arm's reach. Its visor caught my lumen, and returned a dull, wet gleam. Before I could aim, Crail fired. The last bolt carved a searing line through the shadow and through the bulkhead behind it. The tunnel answered with a groan like a wounded giant. Frost shattered overhead, raining shards that hissed on contact with the floor. A low vibration rose through our boots, deep enough to shake teeth. Cease fire. I barked, but the damage was done. A seam split along the corridor wall. Black ichor welling like tar. The deck trembled. Behind us, metal shrieked. The path we had taken constricted, plates folding inward, as if the structure itself sought to swallow us. A blast door slammed down with a sound like bone breaking, sealing the way back. We were trapped.
Ralph's eyes darted wildly. I hit it. I swear I hit it.
You hit nothing, then snarled. Though his own hand shook, the auspex steadied. 5 signatures again, unwavering. My own pulse pounded in my skull. Jern lifted his vox bead. Command, this is Trooper Jern. Request. Static flooded the channel. Then a whisper threaded through it. My own voice drawn long and soft. Proceed. I forced control into my turn. Forward. I ordered. Formation tight. Weapons disciplined. We advanced into a junction where 3 passages met. Each was identical. Same frost-veined walls. Same bleeding ribs. Same scent of sweet iron. No compass reading. No auspex orientation. I chose the center path on instinct. The others followed without protest, too numb for argument. As we moved, the phantom closed the distance. I sensed it rather than saw it, a pressure at the edge of perception. My peripheral vision caught flickers of motion, a boot sole, a gloved hand, always vanishing when faced. Then he whispered litanies through clenched teeth. The words distorted, every third syllable stretching into an animal growl. Crail matched his pace to mine exactly, desperate to keep a human rhythm against the alien cadence pressing in. The corridor suddenly opened into a cavernous vault, ceiling lost in shadow. Stacks of empty supply crates floated inches above the floor, slowly revolving as if in a silent current. Gravity shifted with each breath. My boots alternately dragged and lifted. In the center stood a single flood lamp, dark, unpowered, yet casting a weak circle of amber light. Beneath it lay a human skull, perfectly clean. A fresh Imperial dog tag threaded through the eye socket. The tag bore my name. Jern bent to retrieve it. Before his fingers touched the metal, the phantom stepped into the amber circle. Was me. Same armor, same scar across the cheek plate, same posture down to the angle of the lascan, but its visor was empty darkness. No reflection at all. Every lumen failed at once. Only the faint amber glow remained, haloing my double. "Identify yourself," I demanded, voice breaking. The double tilted its head, my head, then lifted a hand in silent beckon. Creel raised his rifle. Panic igniting, a bolt of blue light tore across the chamber, striking not the figure, but a support strut overhead. The impact thundered through the vault. Metal screamed. The ceiling began to close like a grinding maw, plates folding downward in a rain of sparks and frost. The phantom faded as the gap narrowed, leaving only the skull at my feet. I grabbed the tag, its metal warm against the frozen air. Behind us, the entrance sealed with a final, echoing slam. No route back. The Auspex pulsed once more, 5 signatures. Then, almost gently, a new reading appeared beneath the floor. One more, waiting just below where we stood. The vault settled into silence, a silence that weighed heavier than the grinding steel had moments before. Our lumens flickered back to life one by one, their beams pale and thin, as though the darkness absorbed most of the charge. I checked the Auspex 5 signatures still, and a 6th just beneath the floor, unmoving. "We keep moving," I said, though my voice trembled. The squad obeyed without question. Retreat was no longer an option. The bulkheads behind us had fused into a seamless wall of black alloy. A narrow archway opened on the far side of the chamber. Its threshold dripped with slow beads of condensed frost, each drop falling upward before vanishing into the ceiling. We passed through and entered a passage lined with ancient vox conduits. Every few meters a shattered console hung like a carcass, cables dangling in frozen arcs. Duran tapped his combead. Testing. The vox emitted a faint hiss, then a whisper that formed my own name. I halted, raised a fist for silence. The whisper repeated, this time stretching the syllables as though spoken underwater. "Raina." Creel made the sign of the Aquila across his chest. "Sergeant, that's you."
"I hear it,"
I said. My breath clouded thick around the vox grill. The passage opened into a long gallery of dead cogitators. Rows of Mechanicus data altars lay dormant, their screens cracked yet glowing faintly from within. Binary strings crawled across the fractured glass. Like luminous worms, characters rearranging themselves faster than the eye could follow. Then approached one of the consoles and brushed away the frost. "Can you read it?" I asked. He squinted. "No language I." He stopped, head cocked. "Wait, it's changing. It's Sergeant, it's spelling your name." Indeed, the symbols folded and locked into Gothic letters. Caudes, Rhine, then the lines inverted, letters curling inward, until they formed an endless spiral. My stomach turned at the sight. The Auspex bleeped sharply. Life signs recalibrated. 5. A pause. 4. Then 5 again. I looked to my squad, all present, weapons ready, eyes wide with quiet panic. Creel whispered a litany of protection. His voice lagged a half-beat behind his lips, as if the sound chose to emerge late. Each repetition grew slower, until the final amen arrived several heartbeats after his mouth had closed. A sudden clang split the gallery. A data altar door swung open on its own, releasing a burst of frigid air that smelled of burnt copper. Inside, a vox unit flickered to life. Static roared, then resolved into a sound I recognized with sick certainty. A child reciting the Emperor's Prayer, the same inflection I'd used as a boy on Vostroya. "Protect us from the shadow of unreason." The voice was mine, at 8 years old. My men backed away. I forced myself closer, Lagan raised. Identify source, I demanded, though the order felt meaningless. The recording shifted abruptly. The child voice deepened, stretched into a bass growl. Enter, Jones swore under his breath. It's like the Vox knows us. It knows me, I corrected. The gallery lights died all at once, plunging us into a black so dense it seemed to have weight. Only the flicker of the Vox unit remained, a pulse of cold light. In the dark, footsteps echoed, measured, deliberate, approaching from every direction at once. I swung the lumen beam, but each sweep revealed only my own men, faces pale and tense. Then the Vox hissed again, this time in reverse. My last spoken words played backward, distorted and wet. Then they became me. We advanced by instinct, guided by the flicker of the Vox light, toward a corridor at the far end of the gallery. Frost thickened on our armor, cracking at the joints. The air burned our lungs with each breath. The corridor narrowed, walls etched with unfamiliar Mechanicus runes. I brushed a gauntlet over one symbol and felt it vibrate under my touch like a plucked string. A low hum filled the space, resonating in bone and marrow. Suddenly my helm display lit with telemetry I hadn't activated. Mission log update 0419 local. But the text scrolled backward, letters retreating off the screen. Then grunted in pain, dropping to one knee. Blood welled from a shallow cut across his temple. Pressure spike, he gasped. Feels like inside my skull. Before I could respond, the Vox crackled. A new voice joined, the static high, mechanical, layered with Binshoric clicks. We were invited. We were invited. I recognized the cadence of Mechanicus cant, perhaps a remnant of the missing survey team. Location? I demanded, into the bead. No answer, only the repeated phrase, overlapping itself, until it became a single vibrating tone that rattled my teeth. The tunnel ended at a heavy bulkhead of black steel veined with crimson frost. In its center, a small viewport leaked a dull, pulsating light, like the glow of a furnace, glimpsed through fog. I reached for the panel. It opened before I touched it. Beyond lay a circular chamber, vast enough to swallow a city square. Ribs of frozen alloy arched toward a ceiling, lost in shadow. The walls were carved with endless reliefs of human figures, half fused with machines, their faces stretched in silent screams. A frozen mist drifted from vents high above, curling in slow, deliberate spirals. At the chamber's center stood a shrine of fused ceramite and flesh, armor plates melded seamlessly with pale muscle. The structure pulsed faintly as if breathing, embedded in its surface, half buried yet unmistakable, was the mask of a Vostroyan firstborn. Its cracked visor reflected my own image back at me. Joan stepped closer, despite my warning. Emperor, forgive. It's alive. The shrine's Vox unit clicked and came to life, speakers wheezing like dying lungs. From them spilled a quiet murmur. Then words, precise and cold, spoken in the exact timbre of my voice, as a grown man called us, come home. My Lytron lowered of its own accord, arms trembling as though the weapon resisted me. The chamber lights dimmed to a sickly crimson. Frost along the walls melted into rivulets of dark fluid that smelled of rust and hot iron. The shrine's breathing deepened, each inhale drawing the air from our lungs until we gasped in unison. The Vox repeated the phrase again, louder. Caldas, come home.
I forced a step backward, breaking the trance. Fall back, I ordered, voice cracking.
But behind us, the bulkhead sealed with a thunderclap, locking with a hiss of steam. We were trapped inside the breathing chamber. The shrine's pulse quickened, syncing with my own racing heart, and through the vox, my childhood voice returned, soft and certain. The mother is waiting. The air in the chamber thickened until every breath rasped like sandpaper. My visor display flickered with cascading error runes, each line of data folding into the next, until only a single phrase remained, return. The shrine's breathing matched the pounding in my skull, a rhythm that felt less like sound and more like a command. Sergeant, Jern croaked, his voice paper thin. It's inside the vox. It's inside us. I raised my weapon, forcing my limbs to obey. Target the core, I ordered. Creel ignited the melt charge, the blue glow trembling in his gauntlet. The shrine pulsed brighter, crimson light spilling across the frost-scored floor. Before the charge could deploy, the chamber quaked. Panels of alloy split apart, revealing a lattice of bone-white conduits that writhed like living veins. They wound toward us, hissing with bursts of static, then opened fire. His last blasts burned holes through the conduits, but each wound closed instantly, knitting back with strands of luminous flesh. A new sound rippled through the vault, a choral hum, mechanical, yet mournful. It resonated through our armor, vibrating ribs and teeth. My own thoughts slowed, syllables dragging like they moved through tar. Then the voice returned, now layered and infinite. Child of Vostraya, blood of memory, you are the circuit fulfilled. My name echoed behind it, spoken in dozens of pitches, some like my father, others like strangers I had never met yet, somehow recognized. Creel stumbled forward, eyes wide, his melter charge slipping from his grasp. Sergeant, look. The shrine's surface shifted, plates of ceramite folding aside like petals. Beneath them revealed a hollow cavity. Suspended inside was a figure humanoid, clad in fragmented armor, face hidden behind a fractured mask. Tubes pulsed from its spine into the living walls. It was wearing my regiment's insignia. My heart hammered. Identify yourself, I demanded. The figure stirred, its head lifted, visor catching the dim light. A crack ran across the faceplate, and through it glimmered a single, blood-red eye. When it spoke, it used my voice perfectly. Call to shrine, we have waited. Jern swore and fired. The lawsbolt struck the figure's chest. No effect. The energy dispersed, like water on stone. The air thickened further, gravity itself pressing us toward the floor. I fell to one knee. Around me, the squad's movement slowed, as if time itself obeyed another master. One must remain, the figure intoned. One must witness. The shrine's breathing deepened, until the walls themselves seemed to inhale and exhale. The conduits reached for us again, not striking, but caressing, each touch a whisper against the soul. Memories surged unbidden, childhood winters, Ilrasum Vostroya, the taste of bitter recaf, the smell of my mother's forge fire. They twisted, merging with visions I knew were not mine, stars collapsing into void, endless processions of robed figures, chanting beneath black suns. I fought to anchor myself. Squad, concentrate fire on the core. They obeyed, weapons roaring in desperate unison. Bolts, lass, and melter ripped into the shrine's heart. The chamber blazed with heat and ozone. The figure within merely tilted its head. The damage sealed as fast as it formed, wounds knitting in shimmering lines of crimson light. Then the voice softened, almost kind. Coldus, end the cycle. One breath of surrender, and the weight is gone. I felt something inside me bend, an ancient fatigue, the longing for silence after endless war. It would be so easy. No, I hissed, driving my combat blade into the floor to stay upright. The shrine shuddered. Sparks cascaded from the ceiling, each one freezing mid-fall before dissolving into mist. The red eye regarded me with what might have been sorrow. Then witness, it said. The conduits lashed outward, ensnaring Jern first. He screamed as they pierced his armor. His cry cut short when the veins pulsed and drew him into the wall. Krael lunged at help, but another coil seized him, lifting him bodily toward the ceiling. "Hold position," I shouted. Though terror hollowed my voice, I fired at the tendrils, severing one, but two more replaced it. Then tore free of his gauntlet to reach a frag, primed it, and hurled it into the shrine's cavity. The explosion cracked the chamber's floor, sending tremors through the vault. For a heartbeat, the figure inside flickered, its outline blurring, the red eye fixed on me again. Child of memory, do you not know your own reflection? The crack across its visor widened, revealing a face beneath my face, older, scarred, eyes like dying stars. My breath caught. Impossible, it smiled. My smile. Every path leads here. I walked it. You will walk it. We are the same loop. Closing. The realization hit like a bolt around. This was no enemy of flesh, but a future burned into the Mechanicus vault, a paradox of time and will. Around me, my squad was dragged screaming into the living walls. Their cries echoed, stretching into eternity before falling silent. Only I remained, pinned by gravity and dread. The doppelganger extended a hand, a join, and end the war you have always fought. Something deep within me rebelled, a spark of defiance, older than the Imperium. With a roar I wrenched free, drawing the plasma pistol from my thigh. I aimed not at the figure, but at the ceiling's main conduit, where all the veins converged. "Emperor, guide my hand," I whispered, and fired. The chamber erupted in a blinding storm of light and sound. The conduits shrieked, splitting apart in sprays of molten alloy. The figure howled, not in pain, but in a soundless infinite tone that felt like the universe exhaling. The floor buckled. Frost turned instantly to steam. I was thrown backward, slammed into the wall hard enough to crack ceramite. When the glare faded, the shrine was collapsing in on itself, petals folding inward until nothing remained but a pit of glowing embers. The doppelganger was gone. Silence reclaimed the vault. My auspex read 0 life signs. No squad, no enemy, only me. I staggered to my feet, ears ringing. The bulkhead behind me hissed and slid open of its own accord, revealing a long corridor washed in pale light. I took one step, then another, each echo hollow in the endless passage. From far ahead, faint but unmistakable, came a final whisper. My voice, older still. This is not the end. The corridor stretched on without seam or shadow, a geometry that denied distance. My boots struck the deck with the same hollow echo, yet no matter how far I walked, the vanishing point never grew nearer. Pale light bled from the walls, a colorless luminescence that flattened every feature. I keyed the vox, though I already knew what waited. Command, this is Sergeant Caldis Ryan, last survivor of Sigma Patrol, requesting extraction coordinates. Respond. Only static, a low hum, threaded with something almost melodic. 3 rising notes, that repeated like a forgotten hymn. Each repetition came a heartbeat faster. A sudden flicker ruptured the corridor ahead. For an instant I saw the flesh pits of Vostroya, black ice, and rusted chains. Then the image snapped back to sterile alloy. I blinked hard, pulse hammering, hallucination, or memory forced upon me. My HUD stuttered. New text scrolled across the display. Proximity 2 meters. I froze. Nothing stood within reach. Yet the air around me thickened, as if an unseen mass pressed close. The light dimmed to a dull, red afterglow. Behind me came the scrape of boots. I spun, weapon raised. The corridor was empty. The scrape sounded again, this time directly beside my left ear. Warm breath followed, though no body stood there. Rhine, a voice whispered. Ven's voice, raw and torn. We are inside the walls. We see what you see. My stomach clenched. Identify yourself. No answer, only a long exhale that smelled faintly of iron and frost. The hum shifted, deepening until it resonated in my bones. The 3-note pattern reversed, descending into a mournful cadence. With each beat, the corridor contracted, walls inching closer, though I could not mark the motion with my eyes. A panel to my right peeled open without a sound. Beyond lay a narrow maintenance shaft, dropping into blackness. Every instinct screamed to keep moving forward, but the HUD pulsed a single rune. Enter. I tightened my grip on the plasma pistol and stepped inside. The hatch sealed behind me, plunging the shaft into a darkness so complete it swallowed thought. Metal rungs led downward. I descended, counting each breath. 10 meters, 20. The air grew wet and cold, carrying the copper bite of blood. A faint drip echoed from below, irregular yet rhythmic enough to mimic a heartbeat. At 40 meters, a faint crimson glow emerged. The shaft widened into a chamber that reeked of rust and something sweeter, rot masked by incense. I dropped the final rung and turned. The chamber was circular, walls lined with shattered servitors whose metal limbs twitched in meaningless patterns. Their eyes burned with red lumen, and from each slack jaw issued that same 3-note hymn. In the center knelt Krell. His armor was torn, flesh fused with cables that pulsed like arteries. His head lifted slowly, and I saw no fear in his clouded eyes, only an eerie serenity. "Sergeant," he said, voice layered with static, "the shrine showed me the end. It is a gift."
"You're alive." Relief flared, then died, as I saw the conduits buried deep in his chest, merging spine with steel.
"You should join," he continued, mechanical syllables bleeding through his words. "The war is only noise. Here is the stillness." I aimed at the nearest conduit. "I'll free you." He smiled faintly. "You cannot free what is chosen." The servitor's hymn swelled, and the air trembled. From the far wall, a mass of cables surged, weaving themselves into a doorway of living wire. Beyond it flickered an expanse of impossible sky, stars bending inward like an eye. Curiel rose, movements fluid, despite the metal piercing him. "It waits, Rhine. The loop must close." I fired. The plasma bolt struck center mass, searing flesh and metal alike. He staggered, but did not fall. The wound hissed, sealing in a spray of molten light. "I walked your path," he said softly. "You will walk mine." The cables writhed toward me, snapping like whips. I ducked and rolled, firing again and again, each shot carving momentary gaps that healed before I could advance. A voice, my own again, deeper, filled the chamber. No weapon breaks the circuit, only the witness, may sever the thread. I ignored it, leaping for the maintenance ladder. A tendril lashed around my leg, its surface hot and slick. Pain flared as it tightened, slicing through armor and skin. I jammed the pistol against it and fired. The blast vaporized the coil, releasing a stench of burnt oil and blood. I climbed fast, Crail's calm words chasing me upward. The end is a mercy. Do not flee the stillness. The hymn followed, now a single endless note that vibrated the shaft. My ears bled from the pressure, but I climbed until the hatch above split open. I hauled myself out into another corridor, this one wider, walls etched with sigils that bled faint light. Behind me, the hatch sealed, cutting off the sound. I staggered forward, heart hammering. The runes pulsed in sequences of 3, the same pattern as the hymn. Each pulse synced perfectly with my heartbeat, until I couldn't tell which rhythm belonged to me. A chime cracked through the vox, 3 rising notes, then a new phrase, cold and precise, coordinate 737, observation deck, time limit, 11 minutes. The message repeated twice, then dissolved into static. For the first time since entering this vault, I felt the weight of urgency return, an external clock counting down.
I forced my legs into motion. The corridor bent sharply, opening onto a spiral stair that climbed into a shaft of dim gold light. Above, something immense shifted, the sound like a continent grinding against stone.
As I placed my foot on the first step, the vox hissed again. Ritine's voice whispered, thin as dying wind, "We are still ahead of you." I froze, scanning the shadows, but the stair remained empty. Only the fading scent of iron told me the dead were not entirely gone. The countdown rune pulsed brighter. 10 minutes. I gritted my teeth and began the climb, every step echoing like a drumbeat against a heart I was no longer sure was mine. The stairwell coiled upward like the throat of a giant serpent, each step slick with a fine frost that burned through the soles of my boots. My breath plumed in the dim gold light, rising toward a ceiling I could not see. Above, the grinding sound persisted, stone against stone, or perhaps the slow turning of some colossal gear. 9 minutes remained on the rune that pulsed in my visor. Each flash matched the beat of my heart, a rhythm that seemed to tighten the air itself. I climbed faster, the metal steps vibrating faintly beneath my weight. Halfway up, a sudden chill coursed through the railing. My gauntlet stuck to the frozen steel, tearing flakes of paint as I yanked free. From somewhere deep below came a hollow clang, like a hatch slamming shut. The echo rose after me, multiplied into a chorus of closing doors. I quickened my pace. The stair bent sharply, and the gold light brightened, revealing etchings on the inner wall, spirals of scripture in high Gothic interspersed with binary cant. The words rearranged themselves as I passed, lines twisting to form phrases in low Gothic, then reforming into sigils I did not recognize. Witness, leap, memory, fulfilled. The script pulsed faintly, each syllable exhaling a thin mist that tasted of copper. 8 minutes. I reached a landing where the stairs split into 2 identical spirals, one ascending clockwise, the other counter. My auspex gave no bearing. Both routes led into the same haze of gold. "Choose," a voice said. My urn, pitched low, resonant as a cathedral bell. I turned in a slow circle, weapon raised. "Show yourself." The stairwell answered only with the soft hiss of falling frost. The rune flashed again. 7 minutes. I picked the clockwise path and continued upward. The temperature dropped with each meter. Frost renate my visor. forcing me to scrape it with a glove. My breath grew ragged, each inhale a stab of ice. A faint chant drifted from above, a single note drawn so long it became vibration. My teeth ached from the frequency. At the next landing, a figure waited, half hidden in the swirling light. "Jun," I breathed. He stood motionless, armor blackened, helmet gone. His eyes glowed faint red, pupils swallowed by the same endless spiral etched on the walls.
"You left us," he said.
Voice both metallic and heartbreakingly human. "But we did not leave you."
I raised my pistol. "You're not Jern."
He tilted his head. "All paths close, Sergeant. The flesh pits teach us the shape of return." Behind him, the chant swelled, joined by the scrape of unseen claws. 6 minutes.
I fired.
The plasma bolt burned through his chest in a flash of blue. He did not fall. Instead, the wound knit instantly, flesh hardening to pale alloy. "We are ahead," he whispered, stepping aside to reveal another stair spiraling higher.
But pushed past, refusing to meet his gaze. The cold thickened until each breath crystallized into fine needles. My joints stiffened, armor servos whining.
5 minutes. The gold light darkened to a deep amber. Shadows gathered at the edges of the stair, pooling like liquid. From within them came faint movements, figures half formed, their outlines flickering as if cut from failing hololiths. I caught glimpses of my squad, of the doppelganger in the shrine, even of my own childhood face, each image dissolving as quickly as it appeared. The chant shifted, now a layered harmony of hundreds of voices, some unmistakably mine. 4 minutes. The stair opened onto a vast platform beneath a dome of black crystal. Stars wheeled above, but their patterns bent inward, spiraling toward a central void. At the platform's heart stood an obsidian dais, rimmed with frost, cables snaking from its base into the darkness below. A lone figure waited atop it, Krael again, or something wearing him. The conduits that had pierced his flesh now formed a lattice about his body, suspending him in the air like a grotesque marionette. His eyes glowed with the same amber as the dome. "Sergeant Ryan," he intoned, voice echoing with mechanical depth. "The observation deck welcomes the witness." 3 minutes. I circled warily, pistol trained. "What is this place?" "The still point," he replied. "The end of every circuit. You climbed because the loop demands closure." The dome above pulsed, stars folding inward until the void yawned wide, a pupil dilating. A current of freezing air swept the platform, carrying the scent of ozone and old blood.
You saw yourself, Krael continued. You know the truth. This is not an enemy. This is the Imperium's memory, hungry to remain.
2 minutes. The rune on my visor brightened to blinding white. Sever the third. "What thread?" I shouted. Krael extended an arm. From his palm emerged a filament of light, thin as a nerve, stretching toward the void overhead. It pulsed with the same 3-note rhythm that had haunted every corridor. "Cut it," he said, "or become it." The filament quivered like a living thing. The chant reached a deafening crescendo. 1 minute. I raised the pistol, hands shaking. The air vibrated with impossible pressure, the weight of countless voices demanding both surrender and defiance. My heart pounded to the same 3-beat rhythm. The void above widened, and within it I saw endless versions of myself. Soldier, corpse, machine, child, all climbing the same stair, all raising the same weapon. Kriol's voice softened to a plea. "End the noise. Free us all." 30 seconds. All fired. The plasma bolt struck the filament. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the thread erupted in a blinding flare, a scream of light and sound that shattered the dome. Stars collapsed inward, twisting into a vortex of black and gold. Creel's body disintegrated, conduits whipping free in showers of sparks. The platform buckled beneath me, cracking like ice under a heavy tread. I dropped to one knee as the vortex descended, a hurricane of light and vacuum. The rune on my visor blinked once more, then vanished. Silence, absolute and crushing. The void above sealed as if it had never been, leaving only the cold amber glow of dying circuitry. Where Krail had stood remained a single object, a shard of black crystal, faintly pulsing.
I reached for it, despite every instinct screaming. No, the shard was warm, almost alive, and as my fingers closed around it, a single phrase entered my mind, soft and unmistakable, loop severed, cycle incomplete.
The platform gave a final lurch, tilting toward the dark abyss below. I sprinted for the stair, clutching the shard as the entire deck groaned and began to collapse, the echo of the chant returning in a slow, deliberate beat that promised the descent was only beginning. The stair shuddered beneath me as the platform above disintegrated, each metallic groan a warning of imminent collapse. I ran downward, the black shard clenched tight in my fist, its warmth throbbing like a second pulse. Behind me the chant resumed, low, deliberate, 3 beats drawn out into an endless cadence that pressed against the skull. Dust rained from the dome's fracture high above. Amber fragments of crystal fell like slow meteors, dissolving before they touched the steps. The air itself seemed to warp, every breath carrying the scent of scorched iron and winter frost. I descended in a blur, muscles screaming. The staircase no longer spiraled. It folded, bent, reformed, defying the logic of architecture. At moments I climbed sideways. At others, I felt myself moving upward. Despite my downward momentum, the shard pulsed faster, aligning with the impossible geometry. A sudden flash flared below, white light, searing and absolute. I shielded my visor. When the glare subsided, I stood not on the stair, but in a cavern of obsidian glass. My boots crunched on a floor of black sand that whispered with every step. The cavern stretched infinite, yet a single figure waited at its center. Gurn again. His armor was gone, replaced by robes of woven circuitry that shimmered like liquid mercury. Thin filaments of light streamed from his skin into the cavern walls, vanishing into the darkness. "You severed the thread," he said, voice both gentle and resonant, with metallic undertones. "But the loop seeks new anchor. You raised my plasma pistol. You died in the shrine. I saw you taken. We were never apart," he replied, stepping closer. "We are the record that the flesh pits protect. Every guardsman who enters becomes witness. Every witness becomes archive." The shard in my hand pulsed harder, each beat echoing his words. I shook my head. "I am no archive. I am flesh and duty." His faint smile carried no warmth. Flesh becomes duty. Duty becomes memory. Memory becomes flesh again. Do you not feel it? The cavern trembled. Runes erupted across the glass walls, cascading lines of binary and high Gothic that converged into one sigil, a spiral of 3 interlocking circles. It burned with crimson light, bleeding across the floor until it surrounded us. Jern spread his arms. "The Imperium cannot bear silence. It must remember. You are chosen to remember." The shard grew hot enough to burn through the glove, Yet I could not release it. Images flooded my mind, every battle I had fought, every death I had witnessed, each replayed in perfect clarity, then twisted into scenes I did not know. Ancient crusades under alien suns, starships dissolving into warp light, endless war stretching beyond history. My knees buckled under the weight of borrowed memory. "End this," I gasped. Jern approached, each step ringing like a bell. "Only acceptance ends it. Become the pit, and you will never die." I forced myself upright, fury igniting where despair threatened to root. The Emperor preserves. Not this. A sharp crack split the cavern. Through the fracture poured a wind that smelled of ashes and sanctified oil. The ground lurched, and from the darkness emerged a tide of figures, hundreds of guardsmen in full battle gear, their faces pale, eyes hollow. Each carried the insignia of regiments lost to history. They encircled me in perfect silence. Jern lifted his hand, and their visors flared crimson. "These are the witnesses who chose. They are the Imperium's eternal recollection. They wait for you." I leveled the pistol at his chest. "I will not join your memory." He tilted his head. "Then you will remain alone, screaming into void that never forgets." The shard throbbed wildly, heat lancing through my arm into my heart. My vision blurred, the cavern flickered between realities. Icy trenches of Vorstraya, the shrine's breathing walls, the collapsing dome above. Each blink brought a different war, a different death, and always the chant, relentless in its 3-beat rhythm.
I fired.
The plasma bolt ripped through Jern's chest, vaporizing the circuitry robes. He staggered, but did not fall. The wound glowed, then sealed in a wash of silver light. "Violence cannot unmake remembrance," he said softly. "It only feeds the archive." The ring of spectral soldiers stepped forward in unison. Their boots struck the black sand with a thunder that rattled the cavern. I backed away, searching for any gap, but their formation closed seamless as a machine. I gripped the shard with both hands. Desperate, the heat seared my palms until flesh smoked. A whisper threaded through the cacophony, softer than breath, yet unmistakable. My own voice, "Break the vessel." I looked down. The shard's surface now writhed with faint cracks, light bleeding from within like molten gold. "Don't," Jern warned. Sudden urgency slicing through his calm. "You destroy the vessel. The Imperium forgets. Billions of sacrifices lost to silence. The Emperor's will erased." The soldiers halted, waiting. The whisper came again, firmer. "Break it." I lifted the shard high. Jern's eyes widened, a flicker of fear finally breaking his perfect composure. "You erase yourselves," he pleaded. "You doom every name to nothing." "I will not be your memory," I said. I slammed the shard against the cavern floor. It shattered in a burst of blinding light, a soundless concussion that hurled the phantoms backward. The crimson sigil erupted, spiraling outward until the walls themselves cracked like brittle glass. The soldiers screamed, thousands of voices merging into one endless wail. Their forms disintegrated into ash and static swept away by a gale of unbound energy. Jern fell to his knees, silver light spilling from his wounds. "You unmade the record," he whispered. "The pit will hunger." The cavern quaked violently. Fissures opened underfoot, revealing a churning void of starlight and darkness. Gravity fractured. I felt both weightless and impossibly heavy. Jern raised his head, eyes now dull and human, without memory. "The war begins again, every death repeated. You have doomed them to the same pain." Before I could answer, The floor split entirely, and I plunged into the void. There was no fall, only the sensation of being stretched across infinite distances, scattered through galaxies. Fleeting images flashed. My squad laughing over bitter recaf, the Emperor's statue looming above a silent parade, the black dome collapsing into itself. Then silence. I awoke on cold metal. The corridor from before surrounded me, unbroken and eerily still. The stairwell, the cavern, the army of shades, all gone. My visor flickered once before steadying, HUD clear of runes. The shard lay beside me, whole again, its surface dark and cool. A single Vox transmission crackled in my ear, faint as a dying star. Cycle incomplete. Witness remains. The corridor stretched endlessly ahead, pale light, unchanging. Behind me came a distant echo, 3 soft beats, like a heart refusing to die. The corridor did not end. Hours, perhaps days passed. As I walked, the shard cool and inert in my palm. No hunger, no thirst, only the endless rhythm of my boots on steel. The pale light overhead neither dimmed nor brightened. I began to wonder whether I had died in the cavern, whether this was the warp's quiet eternity disguised as a hallway. At last a door appeared, seamless, black as the void between stars. It bore no handle, no hinge, only a faint outline glowing like frost. I pressed the shard against it. A soundless tremor ran through the metal, and the surface dissolved into mist. Beyond lay a chamber unlike any shrine or fortress. The ceiling arched high, lost in shadows, alive with faint constellations. Transparent panels revealed an ocean of stars beneath the floor, their cold light rising through glass to paint my armor in silver. At the center stood a single figure upon a dais of obsidian, not Jern, not a phantom. The being's form shifted with every blink. A robed priest, a towering space marine, a child with eyes like twin suns. Each flicker carried a different voice, yet the words remained the same. Guardsman, you severed the archive. I tightened my grip on the shard. Who are you? Memory, the voices replied, in perfect chorus. The sum of what the Imperium cannot release. I destroyed your vessel. You broke a vessel, it corrected gently. But remembrance is not stone. It is will, and will does not die. I raised my pistol, though the gesture felt absurd. I refuse to serve as your record. You refuse nothing. You already remember. Your heart is the pit. The constellations shifted, forming the spiral of 3 interlocking circles I had seen in the cavern. Their light pooled around me, drawing me closer. The shard pulsed once, faint but insistent, as though recognizing home. Step forward, despite myself. Why me? Because you entered, because you endured, because you were willing to listen when all others sought only to fight. Then, what do you want? To show you the cost of forgetting. The chamber darkened. Stars blinked out, replaced by visions that hovered like smoke. A battlefield of ash and bone stretched to every horizon. Entire regiments burned, nameless and unmarked. Worlds dissolved into dust, their histories unspoken. I heard millions of silent deaths, each one vanishing before the echo of its own cry. This is the Imperium without memory, the chorus said. A war without witness, victory and loss without meaning. I staggered beneath the weight of it, the absence more terrible than any scream. But memory is pain, I whispered. It traps the dead. Pain is proof, they answered. Without it, sacrifice is nothing. Without it, the Emperor's dream is dust. I sank to one knee, the shard vibrating violently now, as if yearning to rejoin the stars beneath the floor. My thoughts splintered. The quiet of my childhood hive, the comrades I had buried, the endless campaigns where names faded faster than blood. If I let go, all of it might vanish. Perhaps that was mercy. Perhaps it was betrayal. The figure approached, still shifting, now wearing every face I had ever loved or lost. You need not keep it all, the many voices murmured, only enough to matter. I looked down at the shard. Cracks from my earlier strike glimmered faintly, threads of golden light weaving like veins. It was not a prison. It was a seed. What becomes of me if I accept? I asked. You remain mortal. You live. You remember when you speak. The dead breathe for a moment. And if I refuse, silence and the long unmaking. The chamber stilled. Even the stars seemed to hold their breath. I felt the vastness of the Imperium, its empires, its horrors, its fragile faith, press against my soul, a universe begging not to be lost. I thought of Jern, his final plea. You doom every name to nothing.
I thought of my squad laughing in the trench before the bombardment.
I thought of the Emperor, silent upon his throne, kept alive by sacrifice none could count. I placed the shard upon the obsidian dais. Light erupted upward, a column of gold and white. The force lifted me from my knees, but did not burn. Instead it filled me, every memory, every death, every act of defiance and love, until I was certain I would burst. The figure's voices softened into one, a human whisper. Now you understand. When the light faded, the chamber was empty. The dais lay bare. The shard was gone.
I stood alone, yet not alone. Every heartbeat carried 1,000 echoes, each one a name, a story, a fleeting spark of a life once lived. I could feel their weight, but it did not crush me. It steadied me.
A doorway of pale light opened in the far wall. Beyond it lay the corridor once more, stretching toward an unseen dawn. I walked through. The hallway brightened as I moved, its sterile metal warming to a faint gold. Behind me no footsteps followed, yet the presence of countless souls accompanied each stride. Finally, the corridor ended at an airlock. The panel slid open to reveal the surface of Varen Prime beneath a star-laced sky. The black dome was gone, the shrine a memory of stone and dust. Only the cold wind remained, carrying the faint scent of incense and ozone. But I removed my helmet. The air was sharp, but breathable. Above, the constellations pulsed in the pattern of 3 interlocking circles, then slowly dissolved into the natural scatter of stars. For the first time since entering the pits, I felt the simple weight of my own body, weary, scarred, undeniably alive. I touched my chest where the shard had rested. No object remained, yet a quiet resonance lingered, like a heart beating beside my own. The voice, my own, yet larger, echoed softly within. Witness remains. I turned toward the horizon, where the first trace of dawn began to bleed into darkness. The war would continue. Empires would rise and fall, but someone would remember. I would remember. The transport beacon lay half buried in the ash, like a dead heart, its crimson lens pulsing once every few breaths. I approached with deliberate steps, the weight of unseen multitudes humming beneath my skin. The shard was gone, yet its echo threaded every nerve. Each beat of my pulse carried distant voices, whispers of soldiers, priests, and nameless civilians who had perished here long before my arrival. I keyed the vox on my collar. Guardsman then, survivor of Recon Squad version, request immediate extraction. Only static, then faintly, a reply shaped like speech but stretched thin, as though light years distant. Coordinates received. Stand by. The cadence was wrong. The words almost sung. A wind stirred the ash plain. It carried no dust this time, only warmth, as if a furnace door had opened somewhere beneath the planet's crust. The ground trembled. Not the sharp quake of tectonics, but a slow resonant thrum that matched the rhythm of my own heart. I felt the memory chorus stir, not fearful, but expectant. The sky darkened though no clouds gathered. Stars winked out one by one, until only a single constellation remained overhead. 3 interlocking circles, faint gold against black, the same mark from the pit. From the chamber of shifting faces, it rotated slowly, forming a spiral that seemed to descend toward me. A chime echoed from the beacon. 3 notes, precise and mechanical, yet undeniably alive. My vox crackled again. Extraction inbound. The voice intoned, clearer now, but still carrying that strange liturgical cadence. Prepare for atmospheric breach. I scanned the horizon. No ship, no thruster glow, only the endless plain and the silent ruins of Vagran Prime's once proud manufactoria far to the north. The warmth intensified until sweat beaded under my armor. The beacon pulsed brighter. From its lens projected a thin column of light, climbing into the heavens like a prayer. Within the column floated motes of golden dust, each twisting into shapes, tiny figures in miniature, soldiers kneeling, civilians embracing, 1,000 memories flickering and vanishing before I could focus. I felt my knees weaken. "What are you?" I whispered. The beacon answered, with a voice layered from many throats. Continuation. The plane around me began to vibrate in concentric circles. Ash lifted and swirled, revealing black stone beneath etched with the same spiral triad. The symbol pulsed in time with the beacon's chime. My heart matched it, despite my efforts to slow my breath. From the distant ruins came movement, flickers of shadow that coalesced into forms. At first, I thought them survivors, but their strides were too smooth, too deliberate. Shapes of soldiers, robed adepts, even children, all shimmering as if woven from thin light. They carried no weapons, only the stillness of purpose. They encircled the beacon, silent and radiant, faces indistinct, yet achingly familiar. I recognized postures, gestures, the way a comrade once adjusted his last gun strap, the way a medic tilted her head when listening, memories given shape. "You will board," the layered voice said, through the vox. "You will remember." I swallowed hard. Board what? The figures turned their gaze skyward. As one, above, the spiral constellation opened like an iris, revealing a deep brilliance. Beyond the stars, a silhouette emerged. No craft of the Imperial Navy, no shape catalogued by Mechanicus schemata. It resembled a cathedral, inverted, spires curving inward, forged from darkness, rimmed in molten gold. It made no sound as it descended, yet the pressure of its presence forced me to the ground. The memory chorus inside me surged with recognition. A tide of grief and reverence, images cascaded across my mind. The first shrine built to honor the dead of a forgotten war, the quiet prayers of mothers on hive balconies, the final breaths of warriors whose names would never grace a roll of honor, all converged upon this vessel. My vox flared again, now with a single human voice, my own. Witness remains. I pressed my palms into the black stone to steady myself. "I'm only a guardsman," I said aloud, though the admission felt like a lie too small for the truth unfolding. The inverted cathedral halted its descent. A few meters above the plain, light rained from its underside like liquid starlight, washing over the gathered silhouettes without burning them away. A ramp extended, pure radiance, shaped like a stair. The figures turned toward me, their faceless visages somehow patient, an invitation, inevitable and silent. I thought of command protocols, of debriefing and quarantine, of the Inquisition's endless interrogations. None of it mattered. The Imperium would never allow what I now carried, yet to refuse felt like betrayal to every soul whose echo pulsed within me. I stepped forward. Each stride across the black stone resonated like a drumbeat. The silhouettes parted, bowing their heads as I passed. As I placed a boot upon the ramp of light, the voices inside me harmonized into a single wordless chord, sorrow and triumph entwined. The warmth became a gentle heat, neither painful nor comforting, but absolute. My armor's servos hummed softly, as though blessing the moment. Behind me the ash plane faded into darkness, the world of veteran Prime dissolving like a half-remembered dream. At the threshold of the vessel, I hesitated. Beyond lay only radiance, no walls, no floor, an endless expanse filled with slow-turning constellations. The silhouettes remained below, watching. Some raised their hands in a gesture of farewell, others of benediction. I looked once more at the sky, where the rest of the stars still hid behind the spiral aperture. A fleeting thought of home crossed my mind, of a nameless hive city and the smell of wet ferrocrete after rain. Then, even that softened, not erased, but absorbed into the greater hymn. I stepped into the light. The ramp dissolved beneath me, yet I did not fall. Instead I drifted inward, weightless. The cathedral's interior unfolded as infinite halls of memory, banners from forgotten crusades, whispered prayers of lost worlds, the sound of a child laughing before the first bombardment, all of it alive, all of it waiting. The layered voice returned, now beside me, within me, indistinguishable from my own. You will carry them until stars fail. Through you, they will never end. I closed my eyes and let the resonance fill me. Countless lives brushed against my consciousness, some tender, some violent, all unforgotten. The dread I had carried since entering the flesh pits dissolved, leaving only solemn clarity. Outside, the spiral of 3 circles slowly sealed, hiding the vessel from any mortal gaze. The Imperium would believe Verum Prime, an empty, cursed rock. Perhaps they would send another regiment to die. Perhaps not. It no longer mattered. I was no longer merely Guardsman Thane. I was the witness. And as the cathedral of memory rose into the dark between stars, the final thought that echoed through me was neither command nor prayer, but promise. No name will be lost. The transition had no sensation of movement, yet when the light receded, I stood upon a surface that was not metal, not stone, but a shifting lattice of luminescence. It stretched to an infinite horizon, a plane woven from memory itself. Each step sent ripples of color spiraling outward, amber, indigo, gold, each hue carrying the taste of a life once lived. The cathedral no longer enclosed me. Instead, the universe itself had become its nave. A voice emerged from the shimmer, familiar and impossibly distant. Witness, it said, though the syllables arrived like a pulse in my bloodstream rather than sound. I turned and saw the silhouette of a man in tattered flak armor, lascan slung carelessly, his gait, his crooked grin. Ravel, the first squad mate to fall during the siege of Yasser Gate. He should have been decades dead. You remember, Ravel said, and his grin softened into something almost sorrowful. Good. Remembering keeps us. I wanted to speak, to reach for him, but my throat closed. Behind him, more figures emerged from the glow. The Medicae, who bled out under mortar fire. The Commissar, whose stern gaze never wavered, even as the horde consumed him. The civilians from my birth hive, who died nameless in a plague quarantine. Hundreds, then thousands, all recognizable, all impossibly whole. Their presence pressed against my chest, not suffocating but vast. Are you ghosts? I thought. The answer came as a chord of countless voices. We are what remains when silence fails. The lattice brightened, patterns formed, 3 interlocking circles, repeating into the distance like a sacred tessellation. Each intersection flickered with an image, a battlefield, a shrine, a single terrified child, every spark, a memory waiting to be held. Ravel stepped closer until his face was inches from mine. His eyes burned with quiet fire. We are not here to haunt. We are here to anchor. You carry us forward, or we vanish. The weight of their expectation tightened around me. Why me? My voice cracked, startling in the immense quiet. Because you chose to enter the pit, another figure said, a woman I knew only as Sister Kareen, the missionary who blessed our squad before the doomed assault. Because you struck the shard and still listened. I looked down. In my palm the shard had returned, unbroken, pulsing with a golden heartbeat. It warmed my skin without heat, a rhythm that matched the countless echoes around me. Far across the luminous plain, a shape approached, immense and slow. A tower wrought from mirrored glass, its height beyond comprehension. With each distant stride, it drew closer, though no ground was crossed. At its summit burned a sunless flame, black and radiant. The chorus around me hushed. Even the lattice ceased its ripples. Ravel lowered his gaze. The keeper comes. The tower halted a breath away, dwarfing stars. From its base, a door unfolded like a wound. In reality, out stepped a figure, cloaked in a shifting mantle of parchment and light. Pages fluttered endlessly around it, inscribed with languages older than terror, each line igniting as it turned. You have entered the archive of the endless, the keeper said, its voice a harmony of machine chant and human prayer. Your testimony is incomplete. I gripped the shard. I never agreed to be your scribe. Choice ended when you survived. The keeper's faceless hood tilted. Memory demands witness. Behind me, the legion of the remembered stood silent, their eyes fixed on me. Their stillness was an ocean of need. The keeper extended a hand of pure light. Give the shard. Speak the names. Bind them to the eternal ledger. I felt the pulse of every memory within me. Each death, each fleeting joy. To surrender the shard might release the burden, but it would also sever me from these voices, consigning them to oblivion. My mind reeled beneath the paradox. I'm only mortal, I said. I can't hold infinity. You can hold a spark, the keeper replied. A spark is enough. The shard throbbed harder, aligning with my heartbeat until I could no longer tell which was which. Images flooded my vision. Jern's last plea in the cavern, the inverted cathedral descending, the spiral constellation closing like a great eye. Threads of light connected every moment, revealing a single truth. Memory was not weight, it was motion. Ravel's hand touched my shoulder, firm and warm despite its immaterial nature. "We're not asking you to carry everything," he whispered, "only to keep us from vanishing." The keeper lowered its luminous hand. Decide. Silence stretched across the plain. I thought of the Imperium, its endless wars, its bureaucracies that buried the dead beneath numbers. I thought of the Emperor, sustained by sacrifice. None would ever tally. If I refused, these stories would dissolve into the void, unmarked. If I accepted, I would never again be merely human. I raised the shard. Golden fire surged outward, racing across the lattice. Like dawn, the remembered thousands lifted their faces as one. The 3 interlocking circles blazed above, a triumphant, mournful halo. The keeper spread its arms, and the pages of its cloak ignited, each word ascending like a flock of burning birds. The shard melted into my palm, its light threading into every vein. Heat lanced through me, terrible, exquisite. My own memories merged with the chorus, the stench of promethium on a frozen trench line, the tremor of a lover's laugh, long forgotten, the metallic tang of fear before a charging ore cord, all of it alive within me, each detail perfect. I staggered, but did not fall. The keeper's voice filled the universe. The witness is forged. The figures of the dead began to fade, not in loss, but in transference. Their forms dissolved into motes of light that streamed toward me, entering through skin, through breath, through thought. With each touch came a name, a face, a final heartbeat. I whispered them unconsciously, an endless litany that would never be complete. When the last mote vanished, the luminous plane itself began to dim. The lattice folded inward, the infinite horizon collapsing to a single glowing path that led back toward the waiting cathedral ship. Ravel's voice lingered one heartbeat longer. "Remember us well." Darkness swept across the archive. Only the keeper remained, now a silhouette against nothing. "Go," it commanded. Though the tone was almost gentle, "carry what you are. The Imperium will forget. You will not." The surge of light enveloped me, blinding and soft. I felt neither fear nor triumph, only the steady presence of countless lives thrumming within my chest. When sight returned, I stood once more in the cathedral's radiant corridor. Behind me, the door to the archive sealed without sound, leaving only a faint trace of gold upon the air. Inside, the chorus of memory whispered as one, "Re-endure." I drew a single, steady breath. I was still Guardsman Thane, and yet I was more, forever bound to every name that might otherwise fade. The corridor stretched ahead in an endless curve of quiet gold. Yet with each step, I felt the cathedral drawing inward, narrowing to a purpose. Only it understood the motes of memory within me pulsed in time with my heartbeat, a subtle harmony of countless lives. Their presence was no longer intrusive. They breathed with me, patient and calm. The air carried a scent like old parchment warmed by sun, impossible in a vessel of light. I touched the wall, if it could be called that, and felt a texture like soft stone, faintly warm. Beneath my palm, a rhythm thrummed, steady as a heart. The ship was alive. A whisper laced the silence. Witness, my own voice, yet not. It led me toward a faint door of shimmering brass. As I neared, the floor beneath shifted from gold to deep crimson, a reminder of blood long spilled. The door parted without sound. Beyond lay a chamber circular and vast, its center dominated by a single dais. Around the perimeter floated hundreds of translucent reliquaries, each containing an object no larger than a clenched fist, a child's toy, a fragment of ceramite, a bent last cell, a simple coin. They revolved slowly in the air, each shedding a gentle light. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me like a sigh. Atop the dais rested a console of black crystal, symbols burned across its surface, 3 interlocking circles, spiraling inward. My hands moved before thought, hovering above the glyphs. The memories within me stirred. Urgent. You have arrived at the scriptorium of continuance, a voice said. It came from nowhere, and everywhere, woven of choir and machine. You carry the archive. You will set the record. I don't know how, I whispered. Speak! The vessel will translate. I hesitated, then began. Words spilled unbidden. The names of every comrade from my regiment, the children I'd glimpsed in plague quarantines, the workers who sang hymns while munitions rained overhead. Faces I thought forgotten, surfaced intact, each syllable precise. The chamber accepted them, recording without judgment. Light blossomed in the reliquaries as each name found a home.
Hours or days passed as the litany poured from me. My throat never dried, my voice never faltered. Time folded into the rhythm of remembrance. When at last silence returned, every reliquary burned with steady fire, a constellation of the saved.
The console pulsed once. The first ledger is complete, the voice intoned. But there are more. Images flooded my mind, worlds I had never seen, battles beyond my service, deaths uncounted. The chorus within me expanded, drawing threads of memory from corners of the galaxy. A woman singing in a mining shaft on distant forests, a navigator staring into the warp as his mind unraveled, a child tracing the Aquila in dust before an orbital strike. Their names rose to my lips, demanding to be spoken. I gripped the days to steady myself. These aren't mine. They are ours, the voice replied. The Imperium cannot hold them. You can. The influx grew heavier, a tide threatening to crush me. Heat built behind my eyes, a golden pressure. I gasped, trying to resist, but the memories pressed inward, each one pleading for breath. The reliquaries fled brighter, their combined glow bathing the chamber in white fire. You will not drown, the chorus inside me murmured. You will become current. I let go. The torrent surged through every vein, every nerve. I felt the deaths of soldiers on 1,000 nameless fronts, the quiet hopes of scholars in forgotten libraries, the last heartbeat of a titan's princeps as reactor fire consumed his throne. Agony and grace intertwined, infinite and immediate. When the flood subsided, I knelt in the center of the dais, trembling. The reliquaries shone like a starfield, each a life preserved. My body ached, but a profound calm settled over me. I understood now. This was not burden, but communion. The voice spoke again, softer. The second ledger is complete. Only one remains. A final vision emerged. The planet Vaporan Prime, as I first saw it, scarred, silent, its black dome hiding the flesh pits. I watched the doomed recon squad descend, heard their laughter before the first scream. I saw myself younger by days yet lifetimes, entering the cavern, shattering the shard, beginning this endless testimony. The memory twisted. I watched the Imperium arrive after my absence, a full inquisitorial strike force descending upon the planet, scanning ruins, cataloging only ash and static. I heard their verdict: site sterilized, no life signs, recommend orbital cleansing. My existence, my witness, already considered myth. They will forget, the voice said. I felt a spark of anger. Then what is the point? If the Imperium never knows, if they erase everything, they cannot erase what you are, the voice interrupted. Memory is not for the Imperium. It is for the truth itself. The reliquaries brightened until the chamber seemed to dissolve. My own outline faded into the glow. I felt the cathedral's heart beating with mine, a vast rhythm older than any empire. Where do I go now? I asked. Where memory leads, the voice replied. Your path returns to the living. They will not believe, but belief is irrelevant. You will carry the names until the last star dies. A dais lowered silently. A new doorway opened across the chamber, carved from pure shadow edged in gold. Beyond it stretched a corridor of starlight, infinite and beckoning. I looked back once. The reliquaries hovered in patient orbit, a galaxy of souls suspended in gentle light. They did not need farewell. They were farewell. I stepped through the doorway. The corridor beyond felt like stepping into a dream of space itself. Stars wheeled slow and deliberate, close enough to touch, their light cool against my skin. Each spark whispered faintly, a name, a memory, then faded into the wider chorus. I moved forward, guided by a pull, neither physical nor mental. Far ahead, a soft glow gathered into the outline of another door. This one shaped like the Aquila, but fractured into 3 interlocking circles. The symbol pulsed once, twice, in rhythm with my heart. Behind me, the cathedral murmured in voices, too numerous to count. They formed a single phrase, endless and sure. Witness remains. I paused at the threshold, the weight of infinity balanced in my chest. Beyond lay the return to mortal space, to war and disbelief, to the grinding machinery of an empire that would never understand.
I exhaled, feeling the breath of countless others pass with mine.
Then I stepped forward, carrying every name into the dark. The return to mortal space was less an emergence than a slow remembering. Darkness peeled away like ash from cooling metal, revealing a sky thick with bruised clouds and the faint gleam of distant stars. I stood on the fractured plateau of Viren Prime, though the world had changed. The black dome that once hid the flesh pits was gone, replaced by an endless plain of glassy stone. A cold wind scoured the surface, carrying the scent of storms that had never known rain. I knelt, pressing a hand to the ground. The surface thrummed faintly, as if some echo of the cathedral still pulsed beneath. My own body hummed with a quiet resonance, every heartbeat answered by the voices within me. They were gentler now, no longer a flood, but a constant presence, companions more than memories. The sky burned briefly as a ship broke through the upper atmosphere. Its silhouette was unmistakable. A black inquisitorial corvette, its hull marked by the sigil of the Ordo Kronos. I felt the chorus inside me shift, unease rippling like wind through tall grass. They knew what such a ship meant. So did I. I waited as the corvette descended. Dust spiraled into the thin air. A ramp hissed open, revealing a squad of storm-armored acolytes, and a single figure, in a cloak of void black, the inquisitorial rosette gleaming on their chest plate. The figure removed their helm, revealing a face pale and sharp as carved ice, their eyes grey as dying embers, fixed on me without surprise. "You are late," they said. The words struck me with strange familiarity. "You were expecting me." "We were sent to confirm an anomaly," the Inquisitor replied, stepping forward. "But the anomaly stands and breathes. That was unexpected." I rose slowly. "You will find nothing here," I said. "The flesh pits are gone. The shard is dust." "That is not what the auguries claim." Their gaze sharpened, Tell me what you carry. Behind their question lay calculation, the reflex of one trained to extract confession. The memories within me stirred, but not in fear. They waited. I carry names, I said. Billions of them. Every voice this Imperium has silenced. Every life it will forget. The Inquisitor studied me. The stormtroopers tightened their formation, but no order came. That is a curious claim. It is not a claim. It is what I am. Silence stretched between us, heavy with the sound of the wind. The Inquisitor's eyes flicked to the horizon, where the glass plane shimmered faintly. Our sensors read residual warp energy, yet you stand uncorrupted. I am not what the warp makes, I answered. I am what remains when it is done. For the first time, something like uncertainty crossed their face. If I order your death, will those names die with you? They are beyond your reach, I said, beyond even mine. The chorus within me pulsed approval, a low music of countless heartbeats. The Inquisitor felt it too. I saw the faint narrowing of their eyes, the subtle tension in their jaw. They were trained to confront demons, not a living archive. What do you intend? They asked. To walk, I said. To speak when someone is ready to listen. That sounds like heresy. It is remembrance. The Inquisitor's hand hovered near the bolt pistol at their side. The stormtroopers' weapons shifted, but the command to fire never came. Instead, the Inquisitor exhaled slowly, as though measuring the weight of an invisible scale. Perhaps destruction would achieve nothing, they said at last. Perhaps forgetting is the greater danger. Their gaze met mine, and in it I saw a flicker of something dangerously close to respect. Go then, but know this. The Imperium will not thank you. I do not seek its thanks. The Inquisitor stepped back. Leave this world before our orbit cleansers arrive. It will be cinders by next dawn. I inclined my head. The world was already cinders when I arrived. No further words passed between us. The stormtroopers parted, creating a silent corridor to the waiting ramp. I walked past them, the wind tugging at my cloak. None moved to stop me. At the edge of the plateau, a faint light shimmered, a ripple in the air like heat above stone, the cathedral's final gift. I turned once more to see the Inquisitor watching, their face unreadable against the grey sky. Then I stepped into the shimmer. The world folded. I emerged on a starship deck, though no vessel of human design. The walls were veined with soft light, and the air carried the quiet scent of ozone and distant rain. Before me stretched a window of pure void, stars burning like patient eyes. The chorus within me resonated with the hum of the ship.
A figure stood by the viewport, tall and indistinct, wrapped in a cloak of shadow and faint gold. Their voice reached me like a thought-given sound. You have returned with the ledger.
I have, I said, but the Imperium will burn this world. They will never know. They are not the audience, the figure replied. Memory is its own witness. I approached, the floor warm beneath my boots.
Where will I go now?
Where you must, the figure said, to the edges of forgetting, to every place where silence threatens to erase what once was. I looked out at the endless scatter of stars, each a possible path. And when the last name is spoken, then the galaxy will know itself, the figure whispered, even if no one listens. The ship shuddered gently, not with motion, but with intention. I felt its course set toward the dark between constellations. The voices inside me, billions of them, rose in a quiet harmony. Neither song nor prayer, but something older. I closed my eyes. In the darkness behind them, I saw the faces again. Soldiers, children, lovers, enemies, all woven into a single luminous thread. They were not lost. They never would be. When I opened my eyes, the figure was gone, but their presence lingered like a fading echo. The ship's lights dimmed to a soft, perpetual dusk. I stood alone before the void, carrying a galaxy of names in the quiet chambers of my soul, and stepped forward as the stars began to move. The voyage stretched through regions no imperial chart could name. The vessel, if it was a vessel, glided without warp tides or real space thrust, a silent vector across the black between galaxies. I could feel it breathing in micro vibrations beneath the deck, each pulse answering the rhythm of the countless voices inside me. Their harmony had settled into something like a litany, not loud, never shrill, but insistent, as if reminding me that remembrance was a duty and a contagion at once. I spent uncounted hours at the viewing port, though hours were a meaningless measure here. Outside, the stars warped subtly, their constellations bending into curves my mind tried and failed to reconcile. At times a single point of light would expand like a pupil, dilating until I feared it would swallow us whole, only to shrink again with a soft chime that came from nowhere. The ship's interior lights dimmed and brightened in response, as if bowing to some invisible tide. A figure of shadow and faint gold returned without sound. I had begun to think of them as the witness, though they had never offered a name. Their presence brought a sudden clarity to the air, like the calm before an artillery strike. "You feel it now," the witness said, not asked. "The convergence." I did. Beneath my skin, the chorus shifted pitch, notes layering into a geometry I could almost see. "Where are we going?" "Not where," the witness answered, approaching the viewport, "but when." The words reverberated through me, dislocating thought. Time had always been the Imperium's most brittle law, guarded by the Mechanicus and the Ordo Chronos alike. To trespass on it was heresy beyond measure. "You mean to unmake what has been," I said. "To remind what was forgotten," the witness corrected. "Memory without moment is dust. You carry the names, but they are trapped in a dead sequence. They must be set free into every era, or their silence feeds the same void that birthed the flesh pits." The chorus inside me swelled in agreement, an oceanic surge that almost buckled my knees. "If I do this," I whispered, "I could unravel everything." "Everything already unravels," the witness said. "Your Imperium is a wound. It refuses to close. We offer no salvation, only testimony." A tremor rippled through the deck, subtle but undeniable. The viewport darkened until only a single star remained, immense and crimson, its surface riling like boiling blood. Around it coiled a ring of broken moons, each fragment trailing a haze of emerald fire. My breath caught. I recognized the pattern, though it belonged to no stellar cartograph. "This is," my voice failed, "this is before the Great Crusade." "It is before many things," the witness said softly. "A fulcrum point. Here, the first forgetting began." The ship slowed, or perhaps the universe did. I felt gravity bend, a pressure not downward, but inward, tugging at memory itself. Images cascaded behind my eyes. The endless trenches of Vythron Prime, the cathedral of living flesh, the black inquisitorial corvette, the faces of every guardsman who had died screaming in the pits. Yet beneath those, deeper still, older memories surfaced. Cities of crystal beneath alien suns, prayers in languages my tongue had never formed, wars fought before mankind crawled from its cradle. I staggered back, clutching the rail. "These are not my memories."
They are the names you carry, the witness said. Names older than humanity, older than stars. All that is lost seeks a witness.
The chorus rose higher, splitting into harmonics that clawed at the edge of hearing. My skin prickled with frost. Though the air was warm, I could feel the boundaries of my body fraying, each breath a negotiation between self and infinity. Anchor yourself, the witness commanded, their voice a blade through the storm. Choose a name. Speak it. I forced air into my lungs, searching the torrent. One name surfaced. A single guardsman from the flesh pits, a voice I had almost forgotten. Private Hale, the first to die when the shard sank. I spoke his name aloud. The ship echoed it back in 100 tones, and the maelstrom steadied, folding inward like a clenched fist. The witness inclined their head. Good. You begin to understand. What happens now? My voice was raw. Now you will give the names to time itself. They will seed every epoch, every forgotten corner. Empires will rise and crumble, but remembrance will outlast them all. And me? The witness regarded me with those shifting, lightless eyes. You will remain the ledger until the ledger is no longer needed. The deck vibrated with a deep resonant chord. Outside, the crimson star flared, sending spears of emerald light through the void. Each spear split into patterns, spirals, glyphs, fractal litanies that etched themselves across the ship's interior walls. The chorus within me matched the rhythm perfectly, as though answering a call older than creation. Pain lanced through my skull. Brilliant and cold, I fell to one knee, but the witness did not move to help. Instead, they raised a hand, and the patterns on the walls began to rotate, forming a vast, impossible sigil. I recognized fragments of Imperial script, Aldari runes, Necron circuit glyphs, every language braided into a single living design. The voices in my mind converged into one immense note. It vibrated through bone and blood, through the very idea of me. I felt each name preparing to leap, to scatter like sparks across the continuum. Do you consent? The witness asked. My answer was not spoken. It was a release, a loosening of every boundary I had ever called self. The note exploded outward, a silent detonation that flung shards of memory into the star's furious light. The ship became pure brilliance. Time fractured. For an instant I was everywhere. The first breath of terror's dawn, the last scream of a world drowned in tyrannid swarm, the quiet hum of a void station yet to be built. Every death, every birth, every forgetting reversed into a single heartbeat. Then silence. I found myself kneeling once more, the deck cool beneath my palms. The star outside dimmed to a steady crimson ember. The patterns on the walls faded, leaving only faint after images that danced like ghosts. The witness stood beside me, expression unreadable. It is done, they said. The names are eternal. I felt an emptiness where the chorus had been, a quiet, so profound it bordered on grief. Yet beneath it lay a strange, enduring warmth, as if the universe itself now remembered. The witness turned toward the viewport. One step remains, they said, voice soft as the void. The Imperium will feel the ripple. They will come. You must decide how the ledger ends. Before I could speak, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms, if they were alarms, thrumming through the structure. Far off, a spear of golden light tore across the void, unmistakably artificial, unmistakably imperial. They have found us, the witness murmured. The deck tilted, stars wheeling like a storm. My heart slammed once, hard enough to echo. The choice waited like a blade at my throat. The void outside flared white. The light swallowed everything. For a heartbeat, I thought it annihilation. Then the brilliance thinned, resolving into the cold geometry of real space. I stood alone at the viewport. The witness was gone. The ship hummed with a slow, dying pulse, like a heart preparing for its final beat. Outside, the golden spear of imperial light unfurled into a fleet, cathedral-hulled battleships, their prows ablaze with the sigils of the Ordo Chronos. Even through void glass, I felt the weight of their auguries scraping across me, an intrusion like static under the skin. Vox pulses hammered the air, demanding identification, demanding surrender. The ship answered with silence. Inside my chest, the chorus was quiet, not absent, quiet, like a choir holding its breath. For the first time since the flesh pits, I felt utterly singular. No guiding harmonies, no shared memory, only my own heartbeat and the thin rasp of recycled air. A new voice entered the bridge, not through speakers, but through thought. The ledger is yours now. The witness, or what remained of them, brushed against my mind like a fading echo. Decide how the story ends. The fleet began to close formation. Macro batteries cycled, each muzzle a miniature sun. I tasted ozone, though the air scrubbers stayed still. They would fire soon. I moved to the central dais, where the ship's controls, if they could be called that, glimmered faintly. No levers, no runes, only a single panel of living light. My hand hovered above it. Images spilled across my vision. Terror-spired continents, Veyron Prime, glazed in silence. Every world whose forgotten dead now shimmered through the fabric of time, their names whispered just below hearing, patient, eternal, a simple choice, though nothing about it was simple. One gesture could burn the coordinates from existence, carrying me into the endless dark, where no augury could follow. Another could release the archive outward, a flare across the noosphere so vast that even the High Lords would feel it, a wound of memory that could never be sutured. The Imperium would call either option heresy, but only one would let the names breathe. I thought of Private Hale, of the Guardsman who bled out beneath living stone, of the children whose songs had become the pit's first bait. I thought of the Inquisitor who had let me go, perhaps hoping this very moment would arrive, and I thought of the witness, whose face had never been a face, whose truth might have been nothing more than my own need to believe. The fleet's weapons lit the void, countless barrels aligned, a perfect halo of execution. I placed my palm on the panel. The ship responded like a living thing, light coursing from the point of contact through every vein of its structure. The hum rose, deep and resonant, a single note older than galaxies. My body vibrated with it. The names within me surged forward in a sudden tidal roar.
Now the echo of the witness breathed.
I spoke one word, neither prayer nor curse. Remember.
The note burst outward. A wave of luminous dark radiated from the ship, faster than light, faster than causality. I felt it pass through me, through the fleet, through the very lattice of time. Each vessel shuddered as the wave struck, not in destruction, but in revelation. For an instant, their gun crews saw every forgotten soul they had ever consigned to dust. Admirals wept. Servitors paused mid-task, ancient humanity flickering in their dead eyes. Across the Imperium, across eras, the ripple spread, a memory storm that no doctrine could cage. The ship began to break apart, not from attack, but from completion. Panels loft like autumn leaves, light bleeding into the vacuum, as if eager to rejoin the cosmos. gravity lost meaning. I floated free, the viewport dissolving around me, until only the stars remained. The chorus returned, not as a multitude pressing against my skull, but as a vast, gentle tide. I was no longer their vessel. I was their witness, and they were mine. Together we drifted beyond the reach of time, every name a point of starlight, every forgotten life an unending constellation. Far behind, the Imperial fleet hung motionless. I felt their augurs clawing for an explanation they would never find. Some would report a phantom vessel. Others would swear they had stared into the Emperor's own memory. None would agree, and that fracture itself would seed more questions than the Inquisition could silence. I closed my eyes. In the darkness bloomed the endless ledger. Faces of soldiers and saints, heretics and innocents, the living and the dead, all burning with quiet permanence. No empire could erase them now. Not even the warp could swallow a memory shared by every instant of existence. When I opened my eyes, there was no ship, no fleet, no void, only the slow drift of countless names through an infinite night, and among them my own, already dissolving into the story I had carried. The last sound was a whisper carried on that eternal tide. Nothing is ever truly lost. Then even the whisper became light. The stars fold into silence. I have no body to mark their passing, only the drift of thought, a slow current through endless dark. The ledger has scattered, each name flaring across every era, like sparks through dry tinder. I sense them still. Private Hale's last breath on Veyron Prime, the quiet hymn of a void-born child, not yet conceived. The uncounted billions who thought they died unheard, now they echo in the marrow of creation. Far behind, the Imperium convulses. Fleets misreport what they saw. Astropaths wake screaming from dreams of faces they never met. Inquisitors burn records that reappear the next dawn. Every purge births new remembrance. The more they try to forget, the clearer the memory becomes. I drift beyond their calendars. Time no longer slices the universe into before and after. It blooms outward, a single living moment. I am not apart from it. I am not a voice among the dead. I am the quiet proof that nothing, no prayer, no scream, no final breath is ever truly lost. There is no victory here, no monument, only the endless work of remembering, carried on by stars, by dust, by the soft pulse of worlds yet unborn. I am content to dissolve into that labor. A final shimmer moves through the dark, neither sound nor light, but something older. Perhaps it is the witness, or perhaps the universe itself acknowledging what it has always known.
I answer with the only truth that remains.
I remember. The echo travels outward without end, a ripple through eternity. And in that infinite hush, the names burn on, unforgotten, indivisible, eternal.